Well guys, our best laid plans of mice and men. Again, I was going to review a Vitae figure, but a series of unfortunate events means that will be postponed at least 2 weeks. So instead, I'll review another figure I've been asked about from time to time, the Nanmu Allosaurus. And also, I am suffering from a bit of a cold, so my voice might sound different today. Allosaurus is always one of the must-have predators in any book, along with T-Rex and Spinosaurus. But believe it or not, until this one, I didn't have a single accurate Allosaurus figure. Now, Nanmu Studio is a very popular company with good sculpts and paintwork, but I prefer models that are scientifically accurate, and Nanmu tends towards a more, shall we say, a more Jurassic Parkish aesthetic. However, the Allosaurus is a bit of an outlier because it is a pretty accurate figure. There are 2 color variants. One is the Battle of Big Rock version, and this one that I got is the Blade version, which I felt had a more arresting color scheme. The Nanmu Allosaurus measures 34 centimeters, which is about 13 inches, with a real-life estimate of 8.5 to 9.7 meters, which is 28 to 32 feet. That makes this model between 1 to 25th and 1 to 30th scale. So it's a bit too big to scale with the 1 to 35 scale figures, if that's what you predominantly have in your collection. As with all theropods, the focal point for me is the head, so let's start with that. Now, this isn't the Allosaurus shape that we might be more familiar with, which is Allosaurus fragilis, the most commonly depicted species. The relative slenderness suggests more Allosaurus jematsoni, which I presume is named after the late James Madsen, who has authored quite a few articles on Allosaurus, and the card that comes with it suggests this. The detail is really top-notch, especially in the overall scalation. You can clearly see the shapes and sizes that vary regionally. And I especially like what they've done with the mandibular area. Now, some of these scales stand out almost like scutes. And the unevenness of the rows makes it look so very natural. The dewlap on the throat is an interesting feature, but it's a very thin flap with jagged edges, so you want to be very careful not to cut yourself on it. The teeth are very nicely done, individually and very finely sculpted, with different sizes. It has a yellowed appearance which makes it look like real teeth and not the stylized pure white that we often see on many models. The paint job is meticulous and beautiful. Now, from the darker margins fading into the lighter brown of the face, the stripes here, and then the reddish hue infused into the dewlap area, as if suggesting some sort of display function. The tongue has a gloss that gives it a lifelike wetness. And the eyes are carefully painted with a shine that makes it look alive. Now, for those of you into very high accuracy, there are a couple of issues. Now, first, the skull is really shrink-wrapped, which can be a little distracting. Now, as an aesthetic choice, I could overlook it, but shrink wrapping does call attention to the fenestrae, which we then come into the second problem. The lateral-temporal fenestra here seems to be completely the wrong shape. Now, whether for fragilis or jematsoni, it should have an almost keyhole shape that's slanted off the vertical, and not the rather vertical oblong that we see here. Ironically, the information card itself does show the correct shape. But for many people, I suspect this is really a very small problem. Now the jaw itself is supposed to articulate, but the articulation is about as useful as a paper umbrella because it doesn't really close, it doesn't hold open, and I wish they chose one and then made it a part of the overall sculpt, losing this seam in the process. But if you can overlook all these things, you should be pretty happy with this figure, as I am. As for the rest of the body, you can see how very textured it is. Mostly the skin is wrinkly. But dorsally, the skin texture transitions to this very crocodilian, skewed-like appearance. Now, skin impressions of theropods don't support the mirrored shapes and morphologies so popular in many dinosaur models. However, these crocodilian skeweds are not as extensive as on these old Collectae Spinosauruses. And of course, the argument can always be made that because we don't know for sure they didn't have them, it's possible they could have. Now, I, for one, think a little feature scaling like this adds to the aesthetics without becoming too fantastical. So I'm okay with this. To top it off, there's a ridge of pyramidal osteoderms running down the spine. And you can see how beautifully even this tiny feature is painted. Now, small as they are, the osteoderms have a blend of two colors. Of course, you see also the most striking feature, coloration-wise, which is the visual effect of this horizontal triple layer of dark, bright, and then that distinctive dark stripe running down here, which really is the reason I chose this color scheme. I just love it. And see how naturally blended these colors are, with a kind of translucency that suggests under the skin pigmentation, a look that I always love. Now, one thing I'm not too fond of is the belly. Now, perhaps I'm too used to PNSO's chainmail look, but these creases seem to be just a little slack to me, and I feel it certainly could have used a bit more detail. Now, the interface between the thigh and the body here does look a little strange to me, as if it was just a separate piece that was stuck on. But overall, I think it looks pretty good to me. Now, on the plus side, this Allosaurus has an enlarged claw on the first digit, as should be the way. Now, I'm surprised how often this distinctive feature is missing in many models, and if you like accuracy, then this is a basic must, I would say. I would have liked it if the wrists were a little more neutral, especially from this angle. Like, it tends very slightly towards a little bit of pronation, so I guess there's no complete escape from the Jurassic Park aesthetic. The feet are very nicely sculpted with large claws, and this also looks pretty accurate to me, with the fifth vestigial digit presumably covered by skin and scale. And once again, I think you can see how well painted this is. The tail is very long, but actually it's quite close to how Scott Hartman has reconstructed it. Now, my understanding is that Jimetsuni has much of its tail missing, but based on Allosaurus fragilis with the tail estimated to have about 50 caudal vertebrae, this looks right to me. The shape is also correct. Now, at the base, due to the very well developed neural spines and the ventral chevrons, the cross-sectional area would be elliptical. But towards the end, these decrease in the height, and so cross-sectionally, the area would transition to something more round. Now, let's talk about the base. This base suggests wet sand or mud, with a very nice bunching here behind where the foot would be. Now, it's the kind of welling up you'd see when a weight sinks into the sand. Now, special features are these bones, probably its last meal. Now, there's almost nothing left here besides the ribs and some isolated vertebrae. There's an ammonite suggesting that this is indeed a beach, and who knows, this might be dessert next. So I really like the idea of a beachcombing lifestyle. Now, the double pegs here prevent rotation and are made of a metal, so I'm confident in their strength. And whenever a biped comes with a base, I'm super excited because of the dynamic poses possible. And sure enough, that's the case here. The Allosaurus is in mid-stride with one foot off, and it's got this off-kilter lean that I really love. But in hot, humid weather, a lean has often become a keel. As we can see in this unfortunate specimen here. And I'd guess that if this was the same material that PNSO uses, this pose might not be very long for this world. So, if you love Allosaurus, I think this is a worthy piece for your consideration. There are a few nitpicks, but unless you're a real nut for anatomy, I think you'll be very happy with this. And I also emphasize that I'm a self-learner, so I might be off in my observations. It really is one of the more accurate mass-produced figures I know of, and the dynamism of the pose and the beautiful coloration makes this a piece worth having. Although I think this will probably be my last Nanmu. We'll just have to see. Now meanwhile guys, have a great week ahead as always, and I'll see you soon with another video.